incident at the ICI Wallascope line bench. Anybody heard of that one? No, it's too far back. But that guy was flying from an airfield up the other side of Blackpool, and something turned over and went in. Now, training in those days for the cadets was in many ways, in fact, as you do today, with foot drill, arms drill. The only thing is, of course, we were using the 303 Lee Enfield rifles and firing pins were removed, needless to say. We had a Bren gun as well, which we used for dismantling and assembling and learning how to do and what to do with it, keep it in good order. Again, without the fit. I think you no longer train or somebody's dropped something in there. Everybody stops and turns around. Carry on. Do you use a stem gun these days, or 9mm stem on range?
We had 303s up until about 2-3 years ago as drill rifles on parade, but we stopped us using them. So.
Well, that was the rule at school, wasn't it? They used to make those for a very few pounds, but they worked as long as you were in a room like this. Now, on some accounts, of course, we could use these weapons on their ranges. RAF Cranage was a regular both for camp and weekend visits and later gliding instruction. Now, I was on a gliding course there at Cranage, but I wasn't old enough to drive, not officially, but I could drive, so I had no licence, but they let me drive on the airfield with the recovery vehicle, a Beaverette, which was a Hillman vehicle, cut down, had been used as an armoured car, but they took all the armament off it and we used it to recover the gliders. Back to the launching point. All went well there on the gliding course until on one Sunday, which I shall never forget, 3 gliders were written off all on the same day. One glide instructor who should have known better, he lost height too quickly, turning in to land, collided with a telegraph pole, lost a wing, so glider number 1 was off. The airfield at Cranage was tended to be very wet, so there was so much flying going on that they put down the Summerfield trapping. If anybody's heard of that, it was a metal mesh arrangement right the way across the airfield for the aircraft to get on and off. Now, regretfully, there were odd points where, if the cable and the gliders got involved with it and hooked up, the glider was just going up and suddenly down it went, nose crumpled, number 2 glider was taken off. Number 3, Joe was in that and got to the intersection on a ground slide, and the big sticking up ripped the skid out of the bottom, so number 3 glider went out, and that was the end of that period of the gliding instruction at Cranage. Much to my regret, it was never picked up again at any other station before I left. 2 other camps that I attended, squadron attended, one was at RAF Locking near Weston-super-Mare, School of Technical Training, no flying there, but we had a jolly good week. And the other one was at RAF Crosby on Eden, near Carlisle, which is now Carlisle Airport. And we all enjoyed air experience there in the Dakota, or DC-3. That's the Dakota. Next one, please. Yep, no doubt seeing that. In fact, there's the odd 1 or 2 still flying, isn't there? They were fitted out for parachutists and 2 long bench-type seats down the fuselage, and we sat facing each other before we went out over the Irish Sea. And I remember seeing the airman with the coldest job I thought in the Air Force. He had to stand at the end of the runway and inspect the aircraft before they took off, because there had been an incident where something on the runway had punctured the tyre and it had an incident. So his job was to inspect the tyres to make sure they were all okay and no metal or bits sticking in them, and give the pilot a thumbs up for away. I mentioned the first flight I had was in the Oxford at Greenwich. But, at that time, they were really training hard with pilots, so we had to sit on the main spar behind the 2 seats, so there was no chance there of getting hold of the controls. And once we were up, I was completely lost until coming back to land and spotted the line guns at ICI Rostock. And at that time, of course, we swung in and landed. We had visits to RAF Ringway, the home of the parachute training, and RAF Carley, where they gave us air experience in the Dominic. That's the next one up. No, that's a shot of Carlisle Airport with the Dakota. Next one, please. That's an Oxford back at Greenwich, and there's the runway layout. Next one, please. And then there's the Dominic, or Rapide, as it's called today. And that particular one, in fact, I had a trip in it in Cornwall many years afterwards, and I did a bit of research on it and found out it had been built in about 1960s and is still flying today, because that shot was taken by a friend of mine, 2003, and it is still flying down the Dutch. Has anybody flown in one of those? No? That's an experience, and when you get the chance, it's well worth having a go. We had a visit to the Avro factory at Woodford, which enabled us to see the production of the Lancaster and the York, and the transport aircraft. We were allowed inside on the production line, but there was no flight experience that day. Yes, I got promoted to a corporal in the cadets, which I was very proud of, and on reaching the age of 18, I had to go on national service to Padgate, and then to other areas in the Royal Air Force. I told your CEO when he suggested that I gave this talk, I'd like to spill it over into the national service that I did, and he said that was fine. And it was after going to Padgate, he said, ex-ATC cadets over there, others over here. They gave us all numbers, and the air cadets were numbered with the beginning 3. Everybody else began with a 2. And I realised soon why they did that, because we got on the training airfield and they said, right, cadets, air cadets, over there, go and have a smoke behind the hangar. Everybody smoked in those days, we didn't know any better. And the number 2s had to flog it out on the parade ground to learn how to march, which you already do, as we did then. And then it became time for arms drill, cadets round the back of the hangar, while the other guys, so the only time they used us was to show the other guys how to do it. So I was very proud to have been an air cadet. Now, where are we up to? Yes, eventually I went to the School of Technical Training and became an instrument engineer, instrument mechanic, what do you call it? Instrument, not as it is today, because it's very high tech stuff today. Those days it wasn't as heavy as that. But I got posted to a squadron, and I think the next shot is a couple of shots of a Spitfire. The next one is a Martinet, which you've never heard of. Oh, you may have heard of it, but I bet you've never seen it. And that was a crew of 2, the pilot and the TTO, the target towing operator. And he, of course, used to hurl the sleeve out of the trap door in the bottom of the cockpit, and on the length of the cable for the guns to fire at the army. Oh, and there was a shot, I think, next one is of the Harvard. The squadron had just got one of those, which was not flying for 6 months because they waited for a carburetor to come from the States. And when it eventually came, they put it on, and the pilot invited anybody who would like to come for a ride. Nobody volunteered because it had been standing there for 6 months and never turned a wheel. Anyway, Joe said, yes, I'll come, and I had a very, very nice trip in the Harvard for an hour over the North Wales coast. The squadron flew the drogues for the army, and the Spitfires were flying for radar practice. Um,